Prostate biopsy. Ugh, the very thought of it sends shivers down my spine, but I promise to share the details, so let's discuss it.
Urban Christian Veterans provides a safe place for Christian veterans of color to discuss the challenges you face in your daily lives. Being a person of color has its challenges. Being a Christian has its challenges. Being a veteran has its challenges. All of those factors being combined makes for a unique and sometimes difficult life experience that is seldom talked about in public forums. Thank you for tuning in to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Here's your host, D. Allen Rose.
Thank you, Aaron, for that wonderful introduction. This is D. Allen Rose, and you are listening to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Now, before I get into it, I want to explain that there are two very important elements of my prostate cancer journey so far. And first, it's attitude, right? Everybody says attitude is everything. Now, let's not forget that this podcast is called Urban Christian Veterans. I am a Christian who happens to be a veteran. My faith has determined my attitude to this point, right? Because I know that all things are possible through Christ and that God is in control. Given all the things that God has brought me through to this point in my life, I would be foolish to think that he wouldn't do it again. And I know that I'll be fine as long as I remember that in my most difficult times, that he is on the throne. The other thing is support. My friends, my family, my church family, and my wife have all been very supportive. Most importantly, my wife. She doesn't allow me to forget that God is on the throne. My wife and I have been through so much together. I mean, so much over the years that this situation is a minor bump in the road for us. My wife has been incredible. When we got the official diagnosis, it's like she jumped in with both feet and took charge. She insists on being at every one of my appointments and takes detailed notes. She spoke to others in our church who have dealt with cancer and got advice from them about things I can do about it. And as a result, she gets up every morning without fail and she makes me this smoothie with all these fruits and vegetables and powders that she, got from the advice that she received from these others. And she just makes sure that I get this every morning, and she makes sure I'm okay before she even gets herself ready for work. And I have to say something about it because I give her credit for doing this, because we recently did another blood test lab, and my PSA numbers actually went down where they were trending up. They have started going down, and I believe that it's all her because of everything she has done. She insists on driving, and she drives carefully to avoid potholes and other bumps in the road that might cause me pain. Most importantly, she prays, both with me and with others for me. For example, there have been times, several instances where we've been at church and women will just randomly come up to me, say, "Minister Rose, your wife loves you. She and I are praying for you together." I'm like, wow, I had no clue. So before I get into this biopsy thing, I wanted to emphasize how important it has been for me to have someone standing with me through this situation. No, my wife, I love her so much, and I can't imagine how different things would be if she weren't there with me. She is my hero. So let's talk about this biopsy thing. So months before my biopsy was scheduled, the VA sent me this summary letter that kind of explained what the procedure was going to be. And then along with it, they sent some medication and they sent this enema. I got it. And it was so many months out that I really didn't pay attention to it. I kind of was like, all right, well, I have several more months. I'll look back at it as it's closer to the date of the procedure. So my biopsy was scheduled for the Monday after Thanksgiving, 2023, last year. And I had to do the prep, right? I had to do the whole eat light for several days. I had to fast the day before, and then I had to do an enema the morning of. Now, let's think about this for a second. A few days before was Thanksgiving, like the one holiday of the year when you eat the most. but I couldn't eat a whole lot. That Sunday before, right, we have a routine. My wife, my son, we have this routine after every Sunday. We usually have a nice sized meal, but I couldn't do it that Sunday. And let's not even forget, I said the word enema. Can't breeze past that. They sent me that, like, you got to go do this before your procedure. So that wasn't cool. So anyway, Monday morning, wife drives me. We get to the VA hospital, show the guy behind the counter my appointment info, and I ask for directions. How do I get there? Where do I got to go? He tells me how to get there, and he says, look for the sign that says ambulatory surgery. Now, up until this point, it hadn't dawned on me that I was having surgery. So with my goofy self, I say to the dude, look, nah, I'm not here for surgery. I'm getting a biopsy. And as politely as he could, with a straight face, he says, sir, you have to go to ambulatory surgery. Get on the elevator, go to the second floor, look for the sign. Look, man, walking to that elevator, it felt like time just slowed all the way down. Felt like I was on the Green Mile, like dead man walking on my way to the electric chair. I just could not believe I was about to have surgery. Get on the elevator, hit the 2, elevator stops, we get off. Man, I must have floated to the reception desk like a Spike Lee joint, because I don't remember taking any steps. So we're sitting in the waiting room, waiting on them to call my name. And I pull out that letter and I really start studying this thing. Now, to the VA's credit, they spelled out the procedure. But sometimes when we read something, we see what we want to see. We interpret the thing the way we want it to read. The letter said, I may or may not be awake for the procedure. Now, somehow I interpreted that as if I was going to be asleep. Nah, that's not how it worked. Okay, so they call me back. Now, the environment in the VA hospital is way different than a private doctor or a private hospital. Because at a private hospital, you have privacy. At the VA, they treat you like you're still in the military, like they herd you in like cattle. And so let me give you the details so you understand what I'm talking about. So I get called back and I walk in and there's this row of chairs. And in front of the chairs, there's a dressing room. And the lady says, okay, you sit here. And when this gentleman comes out of the dressing room, you're going to go in, you're going to completely disrobe, and you're going to put on 2 hospital gowns, one in the front, one in the back. And you're going to put on this pair of socks. And they give you these socks that have like non-slip surface on the bottom. And so you're, completely naked except for these socks and these robes. Now, as I'm sitting there, there's another gentleman just came from the back. I guess he got his done just now. So he walks over and he sits next to me and the lady says, okay, when he, pointing to me, comes out of the room, you can go in and get dressed and then you're free to go. So down at the end of the row, there's another gentleman waiting to go back. He's already in his robe and he's waiting to go back. So we're all kind of, herded together, like we're bumping into each other. So I'm sitting there, my man is sitting there next to me. She walks off, I kind of look over to him. I was like making small talk. Yo, my man, you survived. Must not be that bad. He's like, yeah, this is my second one. I was like, oh, okay. So in my mind, okay, well, this is his second one. Must not be that bad. And so I said it out loud. Well, you survived. It must not be that bad. Brother just looked at me. He just looked at me. He was like, yeah, I guess not. And what started going through my mind was like, hold on, how's he out here already? If he was just asleep, like, aren't you supposed to be, brother should be in some kind of recovery room or something, like waking up. And then that's when it started to hit me like, oh, nah, we don't go to sleep. So just then the door pops open. Now it's my turn to go in. And I said it again. Brother was coming out. I'm going in. It's like, you made it, man. Everything is all good. That brother just shook his head at me like, and he just... I was like, oh man, this ain't cool. So I go in. I did, follow the instructions. They got undressed, put my clothes in the locker, a pair of socks there, put them on. And by the time I come out, dude that was at the end waiting to go back, he's gone. So I go sit in that last chair. Finally, now it's my turn to go back. So I go back and there's a physician's assistant. It's not an actual doctor that does the procedure. It's a physician's assistant that does it. So I go back and I'm nosy. I'm like, I still called her Doc. What's going on, Doc? Can I see what you're going to be using? And what did I do that for? She showed me what she was going to be using. First thing she picked up, she said, okay, cool. Picked up this thing and she said, this is the biopsy gun. Biopsy gun. I call it the bop gun, like Parliament. Yeah, that's the bop gun. And if I could describe it, it looks like a long, slender turkey baster, but it's skinny. turkey baster looking thing with these 2 finger holes at the end. And there's this button or plunger in the middle that goes against the palm. And she stuck her fingers in the holes. And when she squeezed it against the palm, it made this clicking sound. And she explained that this clicking sound is the spring-loaded needle coming out of the end. And that's what shoots out and takes a sample of your prostate. They call it a core. And she explained that we need 12 cores of your prostate. We're going to get 12 core samples. And she clicks it. Click. That's what it sounds like. Oh, that's not so bad. It's just a click. Click. Okay, bet. Then she showed me the probe, this long, slender thing. And she explained that there was a camera at the end of it. She said, this is going to go in, and this is, there was this monitor right there. And she said, this camera is going to allow me to see up close what's going on, where the prostate is, whatever. And she explains that I'm going to be awake and they're going to use a local anesthesia. So I'm like, well, why? Like, what's the purpose of me being awake? She explained that because the procedure itself is only going to take 15 minutes, it would take 3 times as long to put you to sleep and then to wake you back up. And the risk is too great. It's not worth the risk. We can get you in and out of here and not have to go through putting you to sleep and waking you back up. So just then a nurse comes in and she asked me if I took my antibiotics. I was like, yeah. So the medication that they sent me ahead of time was antibiotics. And the instructions were to take the pill the morning of the procedure. So I took it. I was like, yeah, I took it. She said, cool. I'm going to give you another one so that you're completely protected from infection. And so I'm thinking like, yeah, okay, cool. She's going to give me another pill. She then says, I need you to bend over, grab this table and brace yourself with your right knee against the frame. So I was like, look, y'all come straight out the gate with some foolishness. She was like, yeah, we don't mess around. So that's what I did. I grabbed the table. She's like, just so you know, it's just like back when you were in and you had to go overseas, deploy, and you had to take the shots before you went overseas, the penicillin shots. That's what this is like. Now, for anybody out there that has gone through this, you know that back in the day when we used to get them, we used to have to hold the medication under our own arms because they were refrigerated. And it was in your best interest to warm them up as best you could before you got your own shot. Because if you didn't warm it up, it's going in you cold, thick, like peanut butter. That's what this was like. But they had their own little warming mechanism, so I didn't have to hold it myself. She had the stuff. She pulled it out. I grabbed the table, braced myself, and she hit me with the shot. It was more towards it was in the back, but more towards my hip than like towards the very back. But anyway, it still hurt. That joint hurt. That was probably out of all of this, the most painful, if I could call it that. It stung. I don't call it pain. It stung a lot. And the pain or stinging sensation, it lingered a while. And so, yeah, she hit me with that. And she says, okay, we need you to lay on this table, the operating table. They had me to lay on the operating table on my left side in the fetal position. They put a pillow under my head. I'm on my left side. They told me to raise my knees as close to my chest as possible. So imagine I'm on this operating table on my left side in the fetal position, pillow under my head, knees as close to my chest as possible. Man, that in and of itself was just degrading, humiliating. Then the lady says, okay, I'm about to lift your gown. So she lifts my gown while I'm in the fetal position. And now I'm totally exposed back there. Yeah. So just laying there, man, all just, in that position. I mean, it felt like, man, all I need to do now is like, the only thing I'm missing is sucking my thumb. Because I'm just sitting there just totally helpless. And she says, okay, first I'm going to apply the numbing medication, local anesthesia on the outside first. It's like, okay. So she's talking me through everything she's doing. I was like, all right, bet. Couldn't see it because they were behind me. And it felt like a sponge or something. I couldn't tell. I don't know. That's what it felt like. Then she says, remember, this entire procedure is going to take no more than 15 minutes and we'll be done. And there was this clock on the wall. And when I tell you I watched that thing the whole time, counting down the minutes, clock on the wall right in front of me. She says, okay, I'm about to enter the probe and apply the numbing medication on the inside. Okay. Let me tell you something. I've told some others this. I don't care how cool you are. I don't care how gangster you might think you are. At that moment, when this is happening, for this moment in time, you are punked all the way out, right? There is no cool. There is no gangster. There is no, none of that. You are you just, it's a very humbling experience. She says, all right, I'm about to do this. And it gets worse. She then says, I'm going to need you to strain as if you're having or trying to have a bowel movement. So your muscles will relax and it will make it easier for the probe to go in. I was like, what? What? Like, listen, man, listen. I normally follow directions very well. Give me some instructions. I work it out. But every fiber of my being was like, nah, she didn't just say that. And no, I'm not, like it just wasn't working out. Like she gonna have to do what she had to do. And guess what? She did. In goes the probe. And then she says, okay, here, this is how she said it. Okay, we're in. Like, yeah, you are. You're in. She says, I'm about to apply the medication. The numbing medication is a shot. So you're getting shots. I don't know how many it was on the inside. Like, oh, okay. And then she says, okay, remember the click? And she let me hear the click again. Click. Like, yep, the bop gun. How could I forget? She said, when you hear the click, I need you to hold completely still. It is very important that you hold still. Oh, man. So now I'm in the fetal position. My backside is numb. I got this probe in me, and she wants me to hold still when I hear the click. Okay. A lot to remember, but okay. I got you. And she says, we have to do 12 of these clicks. 12. Okay. I'm with you. Let's do it. She says, are you ready? I said, yes, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. Watching the clock now. I'm watching the clock. She says, okay. Click number 1. Click. She hit me with the bop gun. Now, let me explain how this feels. All right. First, shout out to all you fellas out there that have gotten it done. I hear cats talk all the time. Oh, man, no big deal. It wasn't all that. Okay. To each his own. I don't know. But let me tell you how it felt to me. So, gentlemen out there, if you ever been kicked or struck down there, you know how painful that is, right? And you know that the impact doesn't even have to be hard. It could be no harder than someone just plucking you on the hand, just pluck you. It wouldn't hurt. But if you get plucked down there, it hurts all up in your stomach. Well, that's how I felt. And what makes it worse is that you can't brace for impact. Like there's no muscle down there that you can tense up. There's nothing for you to brace so that you can protect yourself from impact. It's like you just have to take it. She hit me with the pop gun. Click. And that pain, yeah, I call it pain. What it felt like. All up in your stomach. Now don't get me wrong. I mean, I felt pain in the past, or what I call pain. This wasn't that. So but it's different because you can't brace for it. You just gotta, it's just in there. I was like, oh man, it was like super uncomfortable. Like while I can't call it pain, it ain't nothing I want to do again. But then she says, okay, that was number 1. We got 11 more to go. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. So number 2, click, hit me with the bop gun again. Just laying there. It's like, okay, I'm watching the clock. Come on, man. Come on. Got to get this over with. She says, okay, number 3, click. And when she hit me with number 3, then all of a sudden I hear some voices. I hear them talking back there. Like I can't look back. I can't move. Remember, I gotta sit still. But I hear a third voice. It's a male voice. Like what? Okay, whatever. Let's get it. She says, okay, number 4, click. They're talking again. I'm like, wait, what are they talking about? Let's get it. Let's do this. That's number 4. She says, okay, Mr. Rose, unfortunately, we're going to have to do those last 2 again because for some reason there was some kind of film on the needle. So we have to redo those last 2. So when it's all said and done, instead of the 12 that I was supposed to get, I got hit with the bop gun 14 times. Man, yeah. So, which means that's 2 more times worth of recovery. Because remember, the way basically they're treating your prostate like a pincushion, and you got to recover from all the punctures. So instead of recovering from 12 of them, I had 14 of them. So my recovery time was a little longer than average. But anyway. At the time, I wasn't thinking that. I'm like looking at the clock like, all right, let's get it. Let's get this over with. Let's hurry up. Okay, so finally we get to the last one. And she says, okay, we're done. We're at the last one. We finished the last one. So I'm thinking, all right, well, yeah, pull this stuff, get your stuff. Let's, let me get dressed. She says, you have to stay there for another minute and I have to apply pressure to ensure that there is no internal bleeding for 1 minute. I was like, okay. So then she says, all right, here we go. I'm going to apply pressure for a minute. So she pushes, I'm assuming, this thing up against my prostate, and I'm watching the clock, and I'm watching that second hand, and I'm watching, and I'm like, man, hurry up. And this second hand is taking forever. And I'm looking at that thing, and my eyes are playing tricks on me. It looked like it jumped backwards. I'm like, oh, they in here cheating. Come on now, let's go, let's get it. Finally, we're done. She's like, okay, we're all done. She removes her probe, and she's like, okay, 1 second. The nurse is going to come in here, and then she's going to give you some instructions. I was like, I bet, but at least that's out of me. We're done. Nurse comes back in, sister girl with the medication from earlier that told me to brace. She's like, okay, Mr. Rose, you're just about done. Now I have to wipe you to ensure that there is no bleeding. Then you'll be able to get up and get dressed. Now, understand this. This entire procedure, this process, everything that you go through is already humbling. And aside from the discomfort and, whatever you want to call it, pain or whatever, all that aside, this probably had to be the most humbling part for this woman to tell me, this grown man that I am, and she got to wipe, and I'm in the fetal position and I'm getting wiped. And that was like icing on the top. Like, oh man. And so I will say that if you want to reduce the crime rate and you want to, as a deterrent, get these knuckleheads off the street, threaten them with a prostate biopsy. Let a couple of them go through this. They will calm all the way down and behave, because I don't know anybody who would want to go through this. So anyway, everything is done now, right? Everything is done. Nurse says, okay, you can get dressed. She takes me back to that row of chairs. Again, same routine. Somebody's sitting there. Somebody's waiting to go in. So it's my turn to sit there and wait for dude to come out, blah, blah, blah. She says, I need you to get dressed, and I need you to use the restroom while you're in there. Now watch this. She says, when you use it, do not be alarmed. Blood in your urine is normal, and it will be that way for about a week to 10 days. I heard her, but I didn't really hear her. Like, I heard her say it, but it didn't sink in until it was time to get dressed and use the restroom. Because I get dressed. I followed, because the dressing room has a restroom in it. So I get dressed, happy to have my clothes back on. It's like, oh yeah, I got to go in here and use this restroom. So I go in there. Now, I don't care how many times someone says, don't be alarmed. It does not prepare you. Because when I used the restroom, what came out of me momentarily alarmed me. So much so that when I saw it, I began to brace myself for pain, because I was like, that coming out of somebody is going to hurt. But it didn't. It didn't hurt. I expected it to. It didn't hurt. It just looked wild. I was like, oh man, for the next week to 10 days, that's what it looked like. Okay. So yeah, that was wild. So after it was over, my wife and I, we get back to the car. Now it takes about an hour to get home. Mind you, the physician's assistant, what she said was the local anesthesia would wear off in about 45 minutes. It takes me an hour to get home from the VA hospital. When I tell you that we were pulling out of the parking lot and I could already feel it wearing off. Let's just say that on that particular day, on the way home, I could tell you where every pothole was located on our way home. I felt every bump from the hospital to the house. My wife was doing her best to try and avoid the potholes because she didn't know at first, right? Hit a bump on the way and I was like, ow. She was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I felt that. So then she tried to go slower and just didn't work, hitting bumps and all kind of stuff. But anyway, for the next week or so, going to the bathroom, man, that was an adventure. Overall, it took about 2 weeks for me to recover. But I'll say that from that day to right now, there is a achingness in that area, like inside, that it's never gone away. Like I still feel it, I don't know. I just still feel it. Right. I don't know if the biopsy caused it or it's just a normal something expected from having prostate cancer. I just don't know. Furthermore, what I was told was after the procedure, the nurse practitioner said, you have a high pain tolerance and you have to learn to say something when something hurts. Evidently, there was some things going on that I didn't respond to that typically people would respond to. We veterans, they got a history of vets in there kind of reacting when things hurt. And basically, there were some things that happened that I didn't respond to them like they expected. So she was warning me or advising me. She wasn't a warning. It was she was advising me. Listen, I encourage you to say something when something doesn't feel right, because people will, we will do things. And if you're not saying that it hurts, we're going to continue to do it. Right. And she said, you have a high pain tolerance, so you need to say something. So saying all that to say that, guys out there, when something doesn't feel right, say something. That's what they told me, and I remember explaining to her, well, it's the language that's used, because I know what pain feels like. And what I define as pain, this isn't it. This was extremely uncomfortable and nothing I ever want to do again. But it wasn't what I would call pain, because what I felt in the past that was painful, this wasn't that. But I don't want to do it again, right? I don't want to do this again. And also, another thing I would say is that it's both physically uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. The most painful thing I felt during the whole process was the shot before it even started. That was the thing that was the most uncomfortable. Call it pain if you want. Again, on the pain scale, it wasn't really there. But that was the most, the closest thing to anything that hurt. The bop gun, those things, what made it more, uncomfortable was the fact that I couldn't brace. The impact wasn't hard, but because you can't brace yourself for it, that's something else. But can't call it pain. Ached really bad, but it wasn't really pain. So the biggest thing that I would say, that the biggest takeaway, is that it's psychologically humbling and almost humiliating. And I think that's why so many people are afraid of it, because you are out there. I'm talking about, especially when they lift that gown, you're in the fetal position and you just wide open. And if you had a choice, like if I have a choice in the future, I would probably choose to be asleep. I don't want to go through that again awake. In addition to how, the serious discomfort, it's just humiliating. And I later found out that if you jump up and down enough about it before the procedure, the VA will allow you to be put to sleep. Like, I didn't know that. You can't get a general anesthesia and go to sleep and all that old stuff, but you got to really, really make some noise before they do that. So anyway, that was my biopsy adventure. In my next episode, I'm going to get into the PET scan that I had, the MRI, and the actual radiation treatments, which for me, they start in a couple days. So I don't know what that's going to be like, but I'm going to talk about all of that because, again, I just want everybody to know how this goes, what the process is, in the hope that if anybody else has to go through this, you have some idea of what it's going to be like when you go through it. So with that said, until next time, be safe, take care, and we'll talk again soon.